Okay, so this is from a presentation that I saw a few months ago at the OASIS conference about fair use in online learning. Let's take you through it real quick here. So the first question is, which of these qualify for copyright protection? And the answer is all of them. So take a look through these and you'll see that some of them are more obvious and some of them are less obvious. But the basic idea is that original works of authorship, from the moment they're created, are copywritten. This could be something someone says, something someone's written. You have a lot of copywritten work or copyrighted work out there. You might not know it. Things that are protected under the copyright law are names, facts, ideas, processes, or items in the public domain. And we can talk a little bit more later about how things get into the public domain. Okay, these are the exclusive rights of authors and copyright holders. You have the right as the author of something to reproduce it as much as you want, to distribute it as publicly as you want, for instance on a blog, to perform it publicly, display it, or prepare derivative works. Okay, works made for hire. This is an interesting one, employee within the scope of employment. This is an interesting one because technically the work that teachers do while within the employ of their schools is actually copyrighted by the school. And that is something that a lot of people don't realize. So the chemistry curriculum that I developed over the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of those lessons technically are copyrighted by Lakeside School where I used to work. And this is one of the reasons that when you sign your contract for GOA, there's a little statement in there about the stuff that you use is copyrighted by GOA, and we relicense it to you to use in your brick and mortar classrooms, etc. So interesting stuff. If you have questions about it, talk to me. It's really not a big deal, and it's not meant to be threatening in any way. Public domain, things that are in the public domain are works with expired copyright, and things that are given to the public domain as well, things, for instance, that are in the Creative Commons, so that's something we can talk a little bit about, and works that are ineligible for copyright protection because they are ideas or they are facts or they are slogans or logos. Okay. This is some resources that you can use to find works in the public domain, and the idea here is if you find something, you have no need to even abide by fair use. These are free for your use, right? So find some stuff using Creative Commons, Center for Public Domain, etc., and it's open season on these documents. I'm going to kind of breeze through this section here. This is about the four-factor analysis, and it is important, but there's a lot here. So this is how to analyze whether the use of a copyrighted work is fair or not, because ultimately a lot of that has to be done by you. Okay, purpose and character of the use. This is really the question, are you repurposing the copyrighted work, or are you just republishing it? Repurposing it, you're adding something new, you're contextualizing it within the lesson that you're teaching, you're using it for an educational purpose. The use is fair in that case. If you're just republishing it, it's probably less fair. Effect on the potential market, right? Are you denying the copyright holder funds they may otherwise be earning? Okay, if you're copying 90% of a book, you probably otherwise would have them purchase, right? You're denying them funds. If it's competing with the original, if there's an established market for this work already, in a lot of cases like blockbuster movies have that, you're less likely to be using this in a fair way. So that's one thing to think about. What's the nature of the work? Is it a creative piece of work or is it factual? Is it already published or is it unpublished? Okay, so those are some things to think about, right? You can see the spectrum here. Amount and substantiality used. Simple rule is less is more, right? The less you take, the more likely it is fair. The heart of the work is an interesting one. There was a story a bunch of years ago about a newspaper publishing a review of Gerald Ford's autobiography, I believe it was. And it was only maybe a 250 word or 300 word republication of it. So definitely not a substantial amount of the text, but the courts felt ultimately that it was the heart of the work. It was the thesis and the most important, the climax, the denouement. I'm using terms that I don't really know, but it was the most important piece of the work. And ultimately, the newspaper publisher was denied fair use, or they were informed that they were using this unfairly and had to pay the book publisher a significant amount of funds. These are the two questions I want you to be thinking most about. Is the use transformative, and is the amount of material appropriate for this transformation? Those are the two primary questions. If you're using a small clip of a documentary, if you're using a poem in an educational way, if you're using a couple pages of a short piece of fiction as an educational sort of vehicle, and if it's not the majority of the work or the heart of the work, you're probably going to be okay. Okay, here is a very basic guideline to follow about video, text, music, pictures, and data sets. You can look at this for a quick second. Okay, here's an important slide to look at, which is performance and display of copyrighted work in distance learning. This is from 2002. Okay, so adherence to these bullet points is likely going to protect you as a distance educator under the Copyright Harmonization Act of 2002. So, for instance, there's a really important one down here. If this is a user password and other technological measures required to get into the website, which it is in case of Haiku, that's likely going to be a safer use of a copyrighted piece of work. So you can check this out here for a second. Okay, best practices in fair use. Here are some things to do. We've already talked a little bit, or you can see in one of the blocks on this page that linking is the best way to have students access works in their entirety. Only copy what you need. Look for stuff in the public domain, and don't keep stuff up forever if it's a copyrighted piece of work. And always provide attribution to the author. All right, copyright exists to incentivize creative work, and there's a lot of free stuff out there in the public domain. Fair use is an educator's best friend and allows you to use works without having to get permission of the author. And ultimately, it's a balancing test that is context dependent. Okay, here are some links that you can use. They are the PowerPoint itself will be uploaded directly in this little block here, so you can access the PowerPoint as well as this video presentation. Thanks, everybody.